This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Elevate Construction Podcast, where we elevate your mental set point for operational excellence. My name is Jason Schroeder, and today's podcast is titled, Whose Poop Is This? So why would you want to listen today? Do you want to raise the standards on your project site? Do you want to maintain operational control on your project? Do you want a workable method that may suit your style better? Well, if any of these things sound interesting to you, then you are going to love the content today. So here's a quote for you. Sometimes people won't see the truth until they are made to trip over it. So let me tell you a story, and I think you're going to like the title. The reason it says, Whose Poop Is This? Is because it ties into a story that I'm going to tell you from Chip and Dan Heath. They've written some fantastic books like The Power of Moments and Switch. These are fantastic books that totally apply to construction. And there's a story here that I want to bring your mind to, your focus to, and have you tie back to it so you can remember this concept. But I remember I was on a project site once with a superintendent that wasn't really keen on the idea of zero tolerance and dictating the rules of the project and enforcing that. And so he voluntarily, on his own accord, decided to schedule a superintendent walk once or twice a week, depending on what phase he was in, to walk the actual building and to have every superintendent there on site in person to look at things, point at things, decide on what the standards should be on site, and to fix them themselves as they went, and to be the leaders and managers that they needed to be. And this was very effective. When you walked through his project, it was operationally excellent, it was clean, it was safe, it was organized, and they didn't really have to implement the zero tolerance policies like I personally recommend. The only thing that was just a little bit difficult for them was 100% personal protective equipment. So what I'm recommending is that in this principle of making people see the truth by having to trip over it, taking supers and foremen on this walk on a weekly basis, you can start to build a culture and get them to where they need to be and see like you see it. And you can also set certain zero tolerance policies for things so that you have remarkable and a near perfect operational control. And so the principle is that if you do a foreman or a superintendent walk once a week, and I usually recommend doing this on a job-wide no meeting day. Now, when we say no meeting days, like let's say a Wednesday and a Friday were no meeting days on a project site, that doesn't mean you don't do your field huddles, your foreman huddles, and anything you need to do in the field. It means that we don't schedule things in the office like pre-install meetings, coordination meetings, BIM meetings, owners meetings, things like that. We want people to be effective and to be able to focus on what they're supposed to be doing, production work for at least 2 days in the week. So the best in class example is on a no meeting day, meaning a no office meeting day, that the superintendents are brought out to go on this walk. They huddle up at the beginning of the walk, and they talk about the goals of what they're going to look at, where they're going to head, and some of the things that they need to do. In fact, on this project and on future projects and on any of the projects that I set up the signage and the trailers and the site for, I will have a board that's called the winning board. And on the top, it says, what are the milestones for this month? What are the roadblocks for those? And then on the right, there's an idea board in case there are any deviations or roadblocks. Then down on the bottom, it says, what methods are we going to utilize to run this project? How are we going to run this project? And then the middle square says deviations. And then on the right, it has that ideas section again. Because for everything we do in construction, there's when do we need to do it? And on the bottom, how are we going to do it? So these superintendent foreman walks, which whoever you have go with you, are mainly about the how. How are we going to build this project? Are we operationally stable? And if we set those standards, then we need superintendents and trade partner superintendents and foremen to notice the roadblocks from the milestones themselves and notice deviations from how we want to run the project, whether it's clean, safe, organized, great waterproofing, don't affect the neighbor, whatever. And we want them to see that themselves. So these walks can be absolutely fantastic. So they huddle up, talk about the goals, what are the standards, and then during the walk, we're expecting a conversation to happen about any deviations. So the leader, you taking this group around, will walk with the trades, with the superintendents, with the foreman. And when you get to an area where you need to have a discussion, you'll huddle everybody up and you'll start to point and talk and have some conversations. And this is where the story I'm about to tell you really comes in. So ask them questions, get their buy-in, and get them to see things the way you see those things, and also get them to provide the solutions to how they're going to fix them themselves. So let me tell you a story, and this is an excerpt from one of Chip and Dan Heath's books, and so I'm quoting this as a direct excerpt, and so I want to give this to you as a story. It is a fantastic story, and it ties into exactly the point that I'm trying to make. So here is the story. In 1999, the development organization WaterAid funded the construction of latrines in some villages in northern Bangladesh. In these villages, many people lack toilets and defecated outdoors, a practice which leads to the mass spread of diseases such as cholera, hookworm, roundworm, and schistosomiasis. WaterAid's leaders invited an outside expert named Dr. Kamal Carr to conduct an evaluation of the work. He traveled to the site in Bangladesh. That's where our story begins. Warning to the readers: the first story ahead makes frequent use of the S word for feces. If you prefer to avoid it, you might be happier just abandoning this excerpt. But I, on this podcast, will insert the word poop. In Bangladesh, Carr found that the project had gone exactly as planned. The latrines were well built and many people used them, but he also found something else. I would walk behind the villages and go into the fields, and every village he went in, I stepped in poop, he said. Often defecation was still rampant. It was an eye-opening moment for him. The world's development organizations had been thinking about open defecation as a hardware problem. If we just distribute enough latrines, we will solve the problem. But it wasn't that simple. For some villagers, the latrines seemed like a solution to a problem that they hadn't asked to be solved. Sometimes the latrines would be disassembled with their parts used for other purposes. In one village in Malawi, no one used their fancy latrines at all. A development worker said if you asked them, "Why are you not using that latrine?" they would tell you, "Are you sure I should put poop in that structure that is even better than my house?" Adding latrines would not solve open defecation, Carr realized. First, he would have to spark the villagers' desire to change their habits. Acting on this insight, he developed a methodology called Community-Led Total Sanitation, CLTS, which has since been used in more than 60 countries around the world. But don't let the boring acronym fool you. This is a shocking process. Here's a stylized description of a typical intervention. A CLTS facilitator arrives in a village and introduces himself. "I'm studying the sanitation profiles of different villages in the area," he says. "Mind if I look around and ask some questions?" Once he has hung around long enough to attract a small crowd, he conducts a transect walk, leading the crowd from one side of the village to the other. "Where do people poop?" he asks, and the villagers direct him to the common defecation areas. They are embarrassed, eager to move on, but he lingers. He points. "Whose poop is this?" he asks them. "Did anyone poop here today?" A few hands go up. The stench is overpowering. People cover their noses with their cloths. The facilitator keeps asking questions. "Why is this poop yellow? Why is this one brown?" The group completes the transect walk and stops in a large public space. The crowd has grown larger, curious about what's happening. The facilitator asks them to draw a rough map of the village in the dirt. Quickly, the villagers map out the boundaries of the village, along with important landmarks, a school, a church, a stream. Then the facilitator asks them to use stones or leaves to mark where the individual homes are. Once the map has filled in, he points to a bag of yellow chalk he has brought and asks them to sprinkle some on the places where the people poop. He says, "Where there's more poop, use more chalk." There is nervous laughter. The kids enjoy sprinkling the chalk on the open defecation areas. Now the facilitator asks, "Where do you poop in an emergency? Say if there's a rainstorm or if you have diarrhea." More laughter as new heaps of yellow chalk are scattered around. Often it circles people's homes. In those emergency situations, people can't make it to the common areas. It is hard to miss. At this point, the entire village is covered in yellow. There is a turbulent energy in the crowd, anxious, disgusted, angry, and embarrassed. They aren't sure what it all means. The facilitator asks for a glass of water. Someone provides the water, and he asks a woman if she would feel comfortable drinking it, and she says yes. He asks others, and they agree. He pulls a hair from his head. What's in my hand? A hair. Can you see it clearly? No, not really. He walks over to a pile of poop near the meeting area and dips his hair into it. He plunges the dirty hair into the glass of water and swirls it around. He hands a glass to a villager and asks him to take a drink. The man refuses. He passes it along, but they all refuse. Why do you refuse? Because it has poop in it? The facilitator looks puzzled. He asks, how many legs does a fly have? 6. Right. And they're all serrated. Do you think flies pick up more or less poop than my hair? More. Do you ever see flies on your food? Yes. Then do you throw out the food? No. Then what are you eating? The tension is unbearable now. This is what Kamal Carr calls the ignition moment. The truth is inescapable. They have been eating each other's poop. Often at this point, the discussion spirals out of the facilitator's control. People are agitated. They start challenging each other. We can't continue this. This is madness. How can we stop this? They often ask the facilitator what they should do, but he declines to answer. You know your village better than I do. You're free to choose anything you want, including continuing to defecate in public. But the villagers are determined now. It feels intolerable to live with the status quo another day. CLTS is brutal and it's effective. Thousands of communities worldwide have declared themselves open defecation free zones as a result of this intervention. And in Bangladesh, where the CLTS became a cornerstone of national sanitation work, the rate of open defecation has declined from 34% to 1%. What's odd about this success is that CLTS doesn't really introduce any news. In that Bangladeshi village, people in the village defecated in public every day. They saw their neighbors doing the same. Why did the villagers need CLTS to realize something that was right in front of them? Carr said that villagers will often tell him, this is a truth which nobody wanted to discuss. We're always pushing it under the carpet. And then it was brought out in public and into the daylight. Now there's no way out. The naked truth is out. They didn't really see the truth until they were made to trip over it. And so I love this story. It really takes us to the fact that if we want to be better in construction, our people, our management teams, our superintendents, our foremen, our workers have to see the naked truth. They have to see how horrible, dirty, disgusting, unorganized, unsafe, and lackadaisical projects are. They have to get disgusted with it. It has to annoy them. When they go see a pile of trash, they need to look at it and get a little bit pissed off. They need to really have it affect them internally so that they'll make a change. And the best way to do it, in my opinion, is zero tolerance. But if you can't do that, or if you want to do something in addition to it, take your people around with you and ask them questions and have them trip over their own poop. And the current conditions of our industry are that projects can be messy. Foremen and superintendents don't own their own areas and they don't follow up with their crews. It can be difficult to create a culture. Some people do not like to be direct. Some people don't like to direct their crews. And until we get people to be a little bit ashamed of their lack of performance and to see as we see and to have higher standards and to want to fix it themselves and to commit collaboratively, we're not going to fix it. So the solution is try a superintendent walk, try a foreman walk, hold them accountable, have them create the standards with you, raise their standards, explain it, talk about the theory, let them help develop it, and force them to trip over it when you walk, and they will fix it themselves and they will begin to be a part of the solution. And so my challenge to you is train your supers, train your foremen like you would your own team. Do not look at them like a separate part of your organization, meaning that they're not a part of your organization. Look at them like they work within your organization and train them as such. So in closing, I hope that this gives you one more option, one more opportunity to go create remarkable experiences on your project sites for the benefit of workers, to have highly trained individuals, and to really protect our people. I really hope this helps. And so I challenge you to go do something like this and really raise everybody's set point, and to get everyone to see as a group, to know as a group, and to act as a group. I love that saying that I got from Lean Core training. Absolutely fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed this excerpt, this quote from Chip and Dan Heath from their wonderful books. And I really hope that you reach out to me if you want any further clarification, any of their podcast topics, or if you want to do an interview with me. Please reach out to me at jason@elevateconstructionist.com, or check us out on our website, our LinkedIn page, or our Facebook page. We love to help. We love to work with you on your projects. You need this. We need to make sure that we're making great progress. Help me change this industry. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.